Evolution is scientifically impossible. Evolution is a theory developed 140 years ago by Charles Darwin, actually by his grandfather before Charles was even born. At that time, science did not have evidence available to prove the theory false. His famous book on the origin of species by means of natural selection has a title that is now known to be scientifically false. Life did not start with a bolt of lightning striking a pond of water, as claimed by the mainstream scientists. Kids are taught that life can evolve given enough time. This is a false statement without any scientific support. Time does not make impossible things possible. As an example, a computer was programmed in an attempt to arrive at a simple 26-letter alphabet. After 35 trillion attempts, it has only arrived at 14 letters correctly.
So he begins mentioning that Darwin's grandfather actually discovered evolution before him. He did discuss those details with him, but that's not important. And he goes on to say that it's now been discovered that the title of the origin of species by natural selection has been proven false. How so? I mean, natural selection isn't really involved in the origin. Is that what you mean? And then you go off to say that Darwin never spoke of this, that somehow life began because a lightning struck upon, and this is, I think, a part of a biogenesis, which has nothing to do with evolution, so we're not going there, okay? You say this is a 12-minute video claiming that it disproves evolution. A biogenesis has nothing to do with it, so please stop going to that, okay? Thank you. That would be really awesome. And he does mention later, at the last part of this, he says, there was a computer program to randomly acquire the 26 letters of the alphabet, and I am not a mathematician, so I can't tell you the probability of this actually occurring. He said it took 34 trillion attempts and it only got 14 correct. Now I'd like to ask more details of this on what were can it only use each letter once? Could it use each letter multiple times? I don't know how this works. But my point is, there are actual computer programs that do simulate evolution and the evolution of organisms in a environment. So you can look those up. But I really don't know this, and I looked this computer program up because I know it's referring to DNA and mutations and finding the right like code, I guess. I could not find this anywhere, nowhere. I looked, I googled and googled and looked, and I looked at creationists even mentioning it, and I couldn't find any. And I looked for atheists mentioning it, couldn't find any. And I looked everywhere, it was nowhere to be found. So I'd like, if anyone, I implore you to just look it up, link it down below, and I'll respond to it. Alright, just please. I looked everywhere. I implore you, just look it up yourself. I couldn't find it, and if you do, link it to me. Alright, so let's.
The educational system teaches children not to think. Any student who uses logic and solid scientific evidence to question the theory of evolution is ridiculed and insulted into submission. Children are brainwashed by teaching them there is no absolute right or wrong. This results in children who are unable to think logically and scientifically.
Of course, I'm going to disagree with that. I think the opposite. The education system teaches people to think, and I can make that claim as well. The church teaches people not to think. They tell you not to question anything and accept the Word of God as the only source of information. Children are brainwashed by teaching that there is no absolute right or wrong. That's not in school. That's not what they teach. If they teach evolution, they don't touch that. That's not scientific. And you're quoting, this results in children who are unable to think logically and scientifically? Come on, they have their own beliefs. I know you're probably trying to push intelligent design, but that's not, I mean, that's not backed up by any evidence or proof. Evolution is. So why? I'll make that same claim as you. Children are brainwashed by teaching them to only trust the Word of God. Okay? You look at the church. Look at churches where people are unable to express an opinion like evolution, and they get ridiculed. If you want to make that argument, I'll say it's the exact same thing. So let's go on.
The evolutionist will claim that the presence of many individual species proves evolution. This shallow statement is devoid of reason, logic, and scientific proof. Evolutionists line up pictures of similar-looking species and claim they evolved one from another. The human family tree is an example of this flawed theory. Petrified skulls and bones exist from hundreds of species of extinct monkeys and apes. Evolutionists line up the most promising choices to present a gradual progression from monkey to modern man. They simply fill in the big gaps with make-believe creatures to fit the picture. This procedure can be done with humans only because there are many extinct monkeys and ape species. They never do this with tigers or elephants or any other animal. Darwin admitted that fossils of the transitional links between species would have to be found in order to prove his theory. Well, these transitional links have never been found. We only find individual species.
So you begin making the claim that you pretty much did this. I don't know if someone came up to you and said, since there's a lot of species, that means that proves evolution. No. Evolution describes why there are a lot of species. I want to get that out of the way. And you kind of said it like, all evolutionists believe that. No, of course. It's just evolution is the explanation why there are so many diverse species. Just wanted to get that clear. And then you went on to say that the way scientists see how species evolve is they just take fossils and bones and just say, hey, they look very similar, let's just put them into a line. No, in the overall picture, DNA is looked at, embryology is looked at, phylogenetics, and we look at the common traits of all of them, and we look at the modern, we can see, let's say the whale. It has bones around the back end that used to have legs. You can look this up. Sorry, with my editing the program I'm using SHAREfactory. I have to put say 4. It's crappy. I can't really bring that up and show you, but it has bones that support original leg use. They look back and they find fossils and then they go to the fossil record and use dating to make sure that that's correct. The dating matches up before the origin of, the modern whale that we know it of, and we see that they had legs in the areas where we see, and we can see in some fossils and bones the blowhole, which actually came from the nose of some creature before it. I don't know the name. It kind of formed together and went up and formed the blowhole that we know of. We look at all these details, and in the big picture, how we can see how humans are related to whatever, or this animal's related to whatever. We look at phylogenetics, DNA, the fossil record. We go back and time it to make sure. There's all these things that go together. So, embryology, we look at all that. So, I want to make sure that's... So, you made the claim that, and you claim that some reason they do this with humans. You talking about the artistic drawings that they make? No, they've made a bunch of artistic drawings with the tigers and horses and stuff as well, claiming with the fossils that they've found in the location in the fossil record. They've done all the... I mean, the fossil record is not even the #1 proof of evolution. There are so many things that agree. I've mentioned this thousands of times. Embryology, phylogenetics, DNA, they all go together. The vestigial organs that are found, it's just... No one argues with those. It's just fossil record is constantly being targeted. And you even at the end still mention this point over and over. I've heard creationists say, I went to a church where he said it. Oh, well, they haven't found the fossils. There are still tons of missing links. No, there are so many. And if you want to be ignorant to that idea, I can't stop you. Go to a website and look it up, because I'm getting tired of that. I seriously am. Like that argument just... No. Go to a website. Stop being ignorant about it. And if you want to disprove the transitional fossils, go ahead. But stop saying there are none. Thank you. Let's move on. Oh, and by the way, I'm gonna skip his next part because he has a thing that pops up. Let me show you what happens when you ask one of the crazy evolutionists to explain evolution. it's a clip from a child. I think it looks like a child. So with Bill Nye the Science Guy. So I'm skipping that because he has no point behind it. He doesn't make any arguments. He just shows that clip. So let's go.
I think evolution is in trouble. Let's look at some other facts. The living fossil fish proves evolution is wrong. This fish was claimed to be a transitional form with half-formed legs and primitive lungs, ready to transition onto land. This myth was exploded in December 1938, when a living one was caught in a fisherman's net off the eastern coast of South Africa. It is now known that the natives of Comoro Island had been catching and eating the fish for years. It did not have half-formed legs or primitive lungs. It was simply a regular fish that people thought was extinct.
So there is this common claim that living fossils disprove evolution. Completely untrue. But this fish here is called the I don't even remember the name of it. Coelacanth or something like that. And the story is true. Yes, it was believed to be extinct. They did find fossils that were millions of years old of it. And in an and yes, they were dated. And these fossils, and he mentions that they believe that they had primitive lungs. Well, they actually did, because if you look, there is an embryological finding that yes, they have a vestigial organ of lungs. So, yes, they did. But I couldn't find any claims that they had legs or anything. I couldn't find that. That may be true. I'm not sure. But even if it does, it's a mistake, and mistakes happen in science. They're just corrected when they're found. Okay? It's not a disproof of evolution. There are more living fossils that actually existed. But in a stable environment, adaptations aren't selected. So it's so simple. It's not a disproof of evolution. But this has been brought up a lot. You can find it on creationist forums and all that. So, but it's fairly simple. Yeah, yes, this was an actual mistake, and it did exist. But in embryology, we found that the fish actually does have lungs. Well, it doesn't actually. We can find it in development, and then so it's a vestigial organ. It's shut off by DNA, and that's in another video when I go over evolutionary proofs. I guess we can move on from this now.